We denounce these illegal tariffs, and we think that they're a direct attack against our workers and now in the copper industry. And so we'll fight against them.
$2.5 billion vanished. That's the financial crater Ford Motor Company admits tariffs will blast through their 2025 budget. Meanwhile, industry analysts are warning that Stellantis could witness their profits plummet by 75% if these levies remain in place. But the real drama is unfolding north of the border. Foreign Minister Melanie Joly has declared Washington's duties a direct assault on Canadian workers and marked July 21st with a red circle on the calendar. Her message is crystal clear. Withdraw the tariffs, or Ottawa will retaliate with power cuts, metal bans, and a $29.8 billion Canadian dollar counteroffensive. These are two nations once celebrated as partners in the world's most seamless supply chain. Today, they appear more like opponents in a boxing ring, one side launching tax missiles from the Oval Office, the other quietly securing new clients from London to Jakarta. The countdown has begun. If the White House occupant backs down, Detroit might find relief. If not, the next strike will come from Ottawa, and workers on both sides of the border will bear the brunt first. Washington has resurrected Section 232 of the 1962 Trade Expansion Act, a Cold War artifact originally designed for missile components, now stretched to impose fresh duties on steel, aluminum, copper, and even Canadian automobiles. The justification claims homeland protection. The reality shows Ottawa, hardly an adversary, provides Detroit with half the metal that keeps its assembly lines operational. This move isn't isolated. Early July saw the White House dispatch identical correspondence to 20 capitals, warning that without signing fresh bilateral trade agreements, blanket tariffs ranging from 25 to 50% would take effect on Liberation Day. Consider it a global countdown clock. Comply or face the consequences. Financial markets responded immediately. Foreign investors abandoned U.S. treasuries, driving yields upward and pulling billions from New York within a single week as they sought safer investments. Diplomatic circles took notice too. If a friendly neighbor like Canada can be labeled a threat, who remains secure? When the Oval Office mentions national security, allies now interpret it as a negotiating weapon. With July 21st circled in red on Ottawa's calendar, the question isn't whether Canada will surrender, but whether Washington's preferred shield has transformed into a boomerang. The White House's July 11th letter imposing a 35% blanket tariff on all Canadian goods struck Ottawa like an emergency alert. Within 48 hours, Foreign Industry Minister Melanie Joly assembled mining executives in Ottawa. First Glencore and Teck Resources, then Rio Tinto on July 8th, presenting a two-path strategy. Reverse course before July 21st or Canada will block its own lanes. Plan A remains straightforward. Washington eliminates the duties. Negotiations restart. Plan B is already prepared. Ottawa will mirror the U.S. rate with a 25% steel tariff, then activate the larger mechanism. Export prohibitions on hydroelectric power, primary aluminum, and softwood lumber. Each item is strategically chosen for maximum impact. Ontario's hydroelectric power illuminates factories in Buffalo and Syracuse. Quebec's aluminum supplies every third pickup truck rolling out of Michigan. West Coast lumber frames half the new homes in the Pacific Northwest. Ontario has positioned itself at the first switch. Premier Doug Ford reaffirmed on July 12th that the province stands ready to implement a 25% surcharge, approximately $7 Canadian per megawatt hour, on every electron destined for New York, Michigan. And Minnesota, the moment the U.S. clock strikes midnight on the 22nd, grid traders calculate this will cost U.S. buyers $200,000 to $300,000 Canadian dollars daily, sufficient to eliminate thin summer margins at numerous upstate facilities. Consumers are already expressing their preferences through travel choices. Border statistics released July 10th reveal cross-border passenger trips from Canada to the United States dropped 76% compared to the same period last year. Travel agencies are directing potential beachgoers towards Spain and Croatia, while airlines have canceled more than 320,000 Canada-US seats for August. Duty-free establishments from Niagara Falls to Montana report sales declining by nearly half. Joly's office terms this posture solution mode, but the tone is unmistakable. Canada endured aluminum tariffs, then steel, then copper. Now the calendar matters more than rhetoric. 10 days remain. If Washington retreats, the tariffs disappear. If not, a chain reaction begins at Ontario's dams, moves through Quebec's smelters, and concludes with tourists exchanging Disney passes for European tickets. Until 2 weeks ago, a piston manufactured in Quebec could cross the Ambassador Bridge, undergo milling in Detroit, return to Windsor for heat treatment, travel back to Dearborn for final machining, and make one final journey to an Ontario engine facility, all before leaving the continent inside an F-150. Industry associations estimate some components still cross borders 6 or more times before a vehicle completes assembly. That choreography shattered on July 11, 2025, when the White House confirmed a 35% blanket tariff on every Canadian import beginning August 1st. The announcement arrived the same morning. General Motors suspended its Silao, Mexico pickup line and warned Windsor it might idle camshaft production for at least 3 weeks, citing no clear path around cascading border taxes. Detroit's first closure came from Stellantis in April, 900 U.S. layoffs and a halt at Brampton Assembly once the earlier 25% levy activated. Today, management states the July increase transforms a slowdown into complete paralysis. Copper prices already spiked to a record $5.68 per pound after Washington proposed an additional 50% duty on the metal essential for electric vehicle motors and wiring. Suppliers responded by adding surcharges to every harness and radiator shipped this month. Ottawa's countermove targets the same pressure points. On July 12th, Ontario reconfirmed it will add a 25% hydroelectric export fee at midnight on July 22nd if the tariff countdown isn't halted, increasing power costs for more than 170 plastics and stamping plants in upstate New York. Meanwhile, MINS in Sudbury have standing instructions to redirect aluminum billets to Rotterdam, depriving U.S. smelters that already pay the Midwest premium, now triple its 2021 level at 60 cents per pound. For purchasers, the mathematics are devastating. The Alliance for Automotive Innovation warns sticker prices could increase up to 25%, roughly $7,000 on a mid-size SUV once summer inventory clears. Dealers in Ohio and Texas report customers accelerating purchases to avoid the August squeeze. Banks observe a spike in 7-year car loans as households prepare for higher payments. The border itself experiences the chill. Ambassador Bridge truck counts decreased 18% in the past 10 days, according to Canada Border Services data shared with Reuters, while Amtrak's Toronto-Chicago corridor eliminated 2 daily runs after southbound bookings collapsed. Automakers have operated with tight margins and just-in-time principles for decades. Tariffs transform that dance into a relay over burning coals. Every additional loop across the river now adds not minutes, but money. Thousands of dollars in taxes and metal premiums that accumulate by the mile. The clock to July 21st continues ticking. Each stroke means another piston stranded on the wrong side of a toll booth and another car buyer wondering why the showroom price tag suddenly resembles a mortgage payment. The stranded piston at the border represents only half the story. Enter any hardware aisle this week and you'll feel the other half in your wallet. On June 9th, the Midwest aluminum premium broke through 61 cents per pound, up 161% since January. Sheet metal buyers secured orders, but the spike continues reverberating. By July 14th, hot rolled coil in Chicago still hovers near $881 per ton, roughly 1/3 higher than last autumn. Those figures seep into everything that moves, travels, or cools: body panels, refrigerators, barbecue lids. The sticker shock is no longer theoretical. On July 12th, Coca-Cola bottlers informed investors they have begun shifting summer promotions toward plastic bottles after tariffs pushed can costs well beyond budget. A Reuters survey of packaged food manufacturers published June 24th shows smaller brands already testing foil pouches and cartons to avoid the metal bill. Builders cannot dodge so easily. The National Association of Home Builders warned in May and repeated on July 8th that tariff-driven markups on steel, copper, and lumber will add roughly $10,900 to the price of a new single-family home. Mortgage brokers in Ohio state that change alone prices out 1 in 12 first-time buyers. Households feel the pressures. At checkout too. The latest SP Global PMI released July 11th flagged the sharpest increase in selling price inflation since last winter, with furniture and recreational goods leading the climb. The San Francisco Fed quantifies it. If August tariffs hit full strength, real household income could decline 0.4%, about $320 on the median paycheck before New Year's. Ottawa's looming counterstrike promises to tighten the vice. Ontario's 25% hydro export fee, scheduled to activate July 22nd, if negotiations fail, will raise factory power bills south of the Great Lakes, then ripple to grocery shelves and auto parts bins within weeks. Tariffs were marketed as protection, but the bill arrives at checkout counters and closing tables miles from any customs facility. Every cent added to a roll of aluminum, every dollar attached to a ton of steel ends up in the shopping cart. The question is no longer whether shoppers will notice, it's how long they'll continue purchasing before the real slowdown begins. Trust has become the scarce commodity. Since President Trump's tariff offensive began, Canada's dependence on the U.S. market has declined from 78% to 68% of total exports, while sales to Europe, Australia, and Japan have surged 42% in value. Ottawa celebrates the pivot as proof it can survive without Washington's financial support, and exporters are quietly revising contracts. More invoices now quote euros or yen instead of dollars, trade attorneys report, to avoid future tariff shocks. The shift feeds a broader tremor. IMF data released on July 9th shows the greenback's share of official reserves fell to 57.8% at the end of 2024, its lowest in 3 decades, while the euro climbed to 20.1%. It's a small crack, but one that widens each time allies face a tariff announcement. Investors are already hedging. 4 months of rolling tariff threats have erased approximately $4 trillion in U.S. stock market value, pushing funds toward gold and European debt. The San Francisco Fed now warns the new duties could reduce 0.4% from real household income over the next year, a pay reduction that arrives long before any factory jobs return. Dollar dominance isn't crumbling yet, but the erosion has commenced. Every tariff notice nudges another truckload of Canadian aluminum toward Rotterdam and another banker to price a shipment in euros. Confidence, once the cheapest line item in trade, is suddenly the hardest to locate. What if every grocery trip felt like a tax increase? In 6 weeks, Washington's 35% levy snapped the Canada-US supply chain, froze auto plants, and pumped aluminum costs to 162% above January levels. TSX futures dipped 0.1% on July 14th as investors weighed fresh tariff threats and stalled negotiations. The San Francisco Fed warns that if duties hold, U.S. real household income could slide 0.4%, about $320 on the median paycheck before year's end. Will the White House retreat before July 21st and restore harmonious trade relations? Or will Canada double down, forging new partnerships in euros and yuan? The clock continues ticking, and the next move belongs to Washington.